You think you can whoop Blueface?
Anybody get beat. The more jacking nigga can get his ass whooped. And then get what? The most fight nigga can also meet this 40. He'll really lose then. He'll lose more than a fight. He'll lose his life. He'll lose sense of living. He'll lose.
Reason I felt type way when he went online and started, defending whoever I was dealing with at the time.
Right.
It's like, why would you do that? Oh, you just trying to jump on a trend, get a little buzz going. You don't gotta do that, gang.
Right.
But that's how NLE is. NLE is kind of like a clown to this.
Tension in hip-hop just hit a dangerous new level. What started as old internet jokes and ignored subs has suddenly exploded into something far more serious. Because Blueface has officially reignited his beef with NLE Choppa, and fans are saying this time feels different. This isn't just clout chasing anymore. The tone has shifted, the energy is darker, and the internet is watching closely as lines are being crossed that can't be uncrossed. For years, Blueface has been known for turning chaos into headlines. Whether it's social media antics, viral moments, or public feuds, controversy follows him everywhere. But when his name collided with NLE Choppa again, people immediately felt the temperature rise. Subtle disses turned into direct shots. Posts that looked like jokes suddenly carried real menace. And fans began asking the same question. Is this still entertainment? Or is this about to turn real? NLE Choppa, on the other hand, has spent the last few years reshaping his image, focusing on growth, spirituality, and staying out of unnecessary drama. That's why this sudden resurgence of tension shocked so many people. The internet wasn't expecting Choppa's name to be dragged back into a beef that many thought was long dead. And yet, here we are, with cryptic messages, resurfaced clips, and fan theories connecting dots that make the situation feel unpredictable and volatile. What makes this moment especially unsettling is the timing. Both artists are at very different stages in their lives and careers. Blueface's recent controversies have already placed him under a microscope, while NLE Choppa's fan base is fiercely protective of the progress he's made. When those two worlds collide, the result isn't just noise. It's pressure. Pressure from fans, pressure from the streets, and pressure from an industry that has seen too many rap beefs go too far. Social media has poured gasoline on the fire. Every tweet is analyzed. Every post is screenshot. Old interviews are resurfacing, and fans are re-examining moments that once seemed harmless. Suddenly, things that were brushed off before now look like warning signs. Comment sections are split, some calling it entertainment, others genuinely worried about where this could lead. Hip-hop history has taught us one thing. When beefs escalate beyond music, the consequences can be permanent. And that's why this situation feels so heavy. This isn't just about diss records or online arguments anymore. The energy surrounding this clash feels tense, emotional, and potentially dangerous. So the question now isn't who started it. It's how far will it go? And can it be stopped before something irreversible happens? Because right now, Blueface and NLE Choppa are standing on the edge of a moment that could change everything. The roots of the tension between Blueface and NLE Choppa didn't start with one viral post or a single disrespectful comment. It goes back to a period in hip-hop where clout, online presence, and public perception mattered just as much as music itself. At the time, Blueface was rapidly becoming one of the most polarizing figures in rap. His offbeat flow, unpredictable behavior, and constant social media drama made him impossible to ignore. Every move he made felt intentional, designed to spark reactions, and that included who he chose to poke at publicly. NLE Choppa entered the spotlight from a completely different angle. His breakout felt explosive but focused, raw energy, youth, and street authenticity mixed with a hunger to prove himself. Early on, fans saw him as a serious artist with real potential, someone who could grow into longevity rather than burnout and controversy. That contrast alone planted the seeds for friction. In hip-hop, differences in approach often become unspoken challenges, and the internet has a way of turning those differences into sides. The first sparks were subtle, offhand comments in interviews. A few dismissive jokes that fans caught onto immediately. Nothing direct enough to force a response, but just sharp enough to linger. Blueface, known for testing boundaries, leaned into the chaos. His personality thrives on reaction, and when fans began tagging NLE Choppa under his posts, the tension quietly simmered. At the time, Choppa chose silence, focusing on music and personal growth, which only fueled speculation. In the internet era, silence is rarely seen as peace, it's seen as unfinished business. As months passed, the situation faded into the background, replaced by new dramas and trending feuds. But unresolved tension doesn't disappear, it waits. Behind the scenes, fan bases continued to clash, comparing numbers, street credibility, and relevance. Every success by one artist was used as ammunition by supporters of the other. This invisible pressure built a narrative neither artist publicly acknowledged, but both were undoubtedly aware of. Blueface life, meanwhile, became increasingly chaotic. Legal issues, public relationship drama, and constant online confrontations turned him into a walking headline. Each controversy pulled him further into a space where conflict became currency. The more unstable things looked, the more attention followed. And in moments like that, old names resurface. Old tensions become tools to redirect the spotlight. NLE Choppa, in contrast, began evolving. His music shifted. His public image softened. He spoke openly about mental health, spirituality, and growth, distancing himself from unnecessary beef. For many fans, this transformation was inspiring. For others, it was confusing. Hip-hop culture doesn't always reward peace the way it rewards conflict, and some people questioned whether Choppa had lost his edge. That perception, fair or not, created an opening. When Blueface comments started circulating again, they didn't feel random. They felt targeted, almost strategic. Fans noticed the timing. Old clips were reposted. Words were reinterpreted. What once seemed like jokes suddenly carried sharper undertones. The internet began framing it as a challenge to Choppa's new image, as if daring him to respond and prove he was still capable of aggression. What made the situation more intense was how quickly fan narratives escalated it. Comment sections turned hostile. Threats were implied, not always by the artists themselves, but by people claiming to speak for them. This is where things begin to cross from entertainment into danger. When audiences feel invested enough to escalate conflicts on behalf of artists, the situation takes on a life of its own. Behind all of this is a larger truth about modern hip-hop. Beef no longer stays on wax. It lives online, 24/7, magnified by algorithms and rewarded with engagement. Every reaction pushes it further. Every clip stripped of context sharpens the edges. And artists don't just fight each other, they fight narratives being built around them in real time. As Blueface continued leaning into controversy, the tension felt less like playful rivalry and more like provocation. Fans began questioning his intentions. Was this about music, or was it about dragging someone else into chaos? And more importantly, how long could NLE Choppa ignore it before silence turned into pressure? By the time the internet declared the beef back, it was already bigger than both artists. It was about reputation, identity, and control of narrative. What had once been low-level tension was now framed as a crossroads, one that could either fade quietly or explode publicly. And with emotions rising and audiences watching closely, the stage was set for something far more serious than words. As the tension resurfaced, the atmosphere around both camps began to shift in a way that felt heavier than before. This time, it wasn't just fans revisiting old clips or commentators stirring drama for engagement. The energy felt personal, almost confrontational, as if something unresolved had finally been dragged back into the light. Blueface moves became more calculated, more pointed. What once passed as trolling now carried an edge that made people stop laughing and start paying attention. Every post from Blueface was treated like a message, whether it was meant that way or not. Captions were read twice. Emojis were analyzed. Even silence became suspicious. The internet does what it always does in moments like this. It fills in the gaps. And those gaps quickly turned into narratives of disrespect, challenges, and warnings. Some fans claimed Blueface was intentionally trying to provoke a reaction, testing how far he could push before getting a response. Others believed he was feeding off the chaos, knowing controversy keeps his name trending no matter the cost. NLE Choppa's position made the situation even more volatile. His silence wasn't weakness, it was restraint. But in hip-hop culture, restraint is often misinterpreted. Fans began arguing about what his lack of response meant. Some said he was above it, focused on growth and evolution. Others claimed he was being disrespected publicly and that silence would only invite more pressure. That divide split his audience, turning supporters into unofficial spokespeople who escalated the situation in comment sections and live streams. What made things feel dangerous was how fast outside voices began inserting themselves into the conflict. Industry figures hinted at behind-the-scenes conversations. Bloggers teased insider info without proof. Old associates of both artists suddenly had something to say. The noise multiplied, and with it came exaggeration. Stories grew darker. Allegiances were questioned. The line between reality and rumor blurred almost completely. Blueface, already surrounded by instability in his personal life, seemed unfazed by the growing tension. If anything, the attention energized him. In hip-hop, chaos often equals relevance, and relevance can be addictive. Each time his name trended alongside NLE Choppa's, it reinforced the idea that this conflict was working, at least from a visibility standpoint. But visibility comes with consequences, especially when the narrative shifts from jokes to threats. Fans began noticing subtle shifts in tone. What were once playful insults started sounding like warnings. What were once jokes now felt like lines being drawn. People familiar with hip-hop's darker history grew uneasy. They've seen this movie before, where pride, pressure, and public expectation push artists into corners they never intended to stand in. Meanwhile, NLE Choppa's inner circle reportedly urged calm. Those close to him understood how quickly situations can spiral when egos and online narratives collide. Choppa's evolution wasn't just an image. It was a deliberate attempt to break cycles that have destroyed careers and lives. But growth doesn't erase the past, and it doesn't shield someone from being pulled back into chaos when another party refuses to let things die. The internet, however, wasn't interested in peace. Algorithms thrive on conflict, and every heated debate pushed the situation further into the spotlight. Reaction videos flooded timelines. Fans replayed old moments, twisting them into new meanings. What should have stayed buried was now being resurrected daily, each repost adding fuel to a fire that no longer needed encouragement. Behind all the noise, there was a deeper issue at play: respect. In hip-hop, respect isn't just about words, it's about perception. Blueface actions were widely seen as a challenge, whether intentional or not. And challenges demand answers, especially when millions of eyes are watching. The longer the situation dragged on, the harder it became for it to simply fade away. Tension like this doesn't exist in a vacuum. It affects people around the artists, friends, family, and associates who feel obligated to defend their side. That's when things get dangerous. Because once others start speaking and acting on behalf of artists, control slips away. The conflict stops being about two individuals and starts becoming about pride, loyalty, and retaliation. As days passed, the question wasn't whether this beef would escalate, it was how. Would it stay confined to words and online drama? Or would it spill into the real world where consequences are permanent? Fans began voicing genuine concern, urging both sides to step back before things went too far. But concern doesn't trend the way conflict does. At this point, the situation felt like it was standing on a razor's edge. One comment, one response, one emotional moment could tip everything in the wrong direction. And in a culture that has already lost too many voices to unnecessary violence, the weight of that possibility hung heavily over every post, every silence, and every move being made. As the tension continued to simmer, the situation began to take on a life of its own, moving beyond just two artists and into the wider ecosystem of hip-hop culture. What made this phase especially unsettling was how normal the conflict started to feel. Fans woke up expecting new developments. Bloggers refreshed pages waiting for the next headline. Conflict had become routine, and that normalization is often the most dangerous stage of any public feud. Blueface's presence online grew louder, even when he wasn't explicitly addressing NLE Choppa. The ambiguity itself felt intentional. Vague captions, indirect references, and carefully timed posts all fed the narrative that something was brewing beneath the surface. In the absence of clear statements, people projected meaning onto everything. A song lyric became a diss. A laugh became disrespect. Even unrelated posts were framed as part of the ongoing tension. The story was no longer being controlled by facts. It was being driven by perception. For NLE Choppa, the pressure was reaching a critical point. His attempts to remain silent and grounded were increasingly framed as avoidance rather than maturity. Fans and critics debated endlessly about what he should do, as if the situation belonged to the audience instead of the people actually involved. That external pressure can be suffocating, especially when millions of voices are telling you how to respond, how to feel, and what your silence supposedly means. The most alarming shift came when the language around the beef started changing. Comment sections that once joked about rap drama began using words like danger, real, and too far. Fans referenced past tragedies in hip-hop, drawing uncomfortable parallels and warning that things were heading down a familiar path. When audiences start invoking history like that, it's usually because the energy has crossed an invisible line. Behind the scenes, both camps were undoubtedly aware of what was happening. Even if no direct communication was taking place, the noise alone was impossible to ignore. Friends, associates, and industry peers likely weighed in privately, urging caution or, in some cases, fueling resentment. This is where situations often spiral, not because of one big moment, but because of dozens of small voices whispering conflicting advice. Blueface's public image complicated everything further. His reputation for chaos meant that many people expected escalation, whether he intended it or not. When someone is known for unpredictability, every move is viewed through that lens. That perception stripped away the benefit of the doubt and made it harder for anyone to believe the situation could de-escalate on its own. At the same time, NLE Choppa's transformation became part of the narrative battlefield. Supporters praised his growth, framing him as someone trying to rise above negativity. Critics questioned whether that growth was being tested in real time. The contrast between who he used to be and who he is now made the situation emotionally charged. It wasn't just about a response. It was about identity, pride, and whether change is respected or punished in hip-hop culture. The media's role cannot be ignored during this phase. Headlines became more dramatic. Thumbnails became darker. Language grew more sensational. Fear sells, and the possibility of escalation generated clicks. But sensational coverage has consequences. It amplifies tension, rewards extreme interpretations, and makes calm responses seem boring or inadequate. In that environment, restraint becomes harder to maintain. Fans, too, played a critical role. Some genuinely called for peace, urging both artists to protect their lives and careers. Others treated the situation like a spectacle, choosing sides and daring one artist to outdo the other. That split reflected a larger problem in modern culture, where conflict is consumed like entertainment, even when real people are involved. What made this moment especially heavy was the sense that control was slipping away. The beef was no longer just between Blueface and NLE Choppa. It was now being shaped by fans, media outlets, algorithms, and assumptions. Each new voice added complexity, making it harder for either artist to steer the situation toward resolution without looking weak or disrespected. This is the stage where many conflicts reach a breaking point. Not because someone wants them to, but because momentum takes over. Pride collides with pressure. Silence collides with expectation. And suddenly, the space for calm conversation disappears. As the tension lingered, one truth became impossible to ignore. This was no longer about old jokes or resurfaced comments. It was about how quickly unresolved issues can evolve into something dangerous when left to ferment in public view. The longer the situation stayed unresolved, the more fragile it became. And with every passing moment, the stakes grew higher, not just for careers, but for real lives. By this stage, the situation had reached a point where even neutrality felt impossible. Every move, or lack of one, was interpreted as a signal. The silence between statements grew louder than any diss ever could. Fans weren't just watching anymore, they were waiting. Waiting for a response, a reaction, or mistake. And in moments like this, the pressure doesn't come from one direction. It closes in from all sides at once. Blueface actions continued to feel provocative, even when they weren't overtly aggressive. His online presence carried a tone that suggested confidence, almost defiance, as if he was daring the moment to escalate. People debated whether he was intentionally pushing boundaries or simply being himself in a space that rewards disruption. Either way, the effect was the same. The tension stayed alive. Every time his name trended, it pulled NLE Choppa's back into the conversation, regardless of whether Choppa wanted to be there. NLE Choppa's camp, meanwhile, appeared increasingly focused on damage control. The goal wasn't to win a public argument. It was to avoid letting the narrative spiral into something irreversible. Those close to him understood how fast situations can turn once pride, perception, and public expectation collide. Staying quiet was no longer just a personal choice. It was a strategic one. But strategies don't always survive public pressure, especially when fans mistake patience for weakness. What complicated matters further was how the streets and the internet began to blur. In hip-hop culture, online words can carry real-world weight. When fans and commentators start suggesting that something is real or not just rap, it changes how the situation is perceived by everyone involved. That shift alone can escalate tension, even if no one intends it to. The danger lies in misinterpretation, where jokes are read as threats and posts are seen as challenges. Old alliances were suddenly questioned. People from both artists' past were dragged into the discussion, sometimes unfairly. Names resurfaced. Old beefs were re-examined. The past, which had nothing to do with the present moment, became ammunition for speculation. This is how conflicts expand, by pulling in history that was never meant to be relived. The media coverage grew more intense. Headlines leaned into worst-case scenarios. Commentary became more dramatic. Some voices tried to inject reason, reminding audiences how destructive unchecked beefs have been in the past. Others leaned into fear, framing the situation as if an explosion was inevitable. That kind of framing doesn't just report reality, it helps shape it. Fans began to feel genuine anxiety. The jokes slowed. The memes stopped being funny. In their place were comments urging both artists to stay safe, to focus on music, to step away before things went too far. That shift in tone was telling. When an audience that thrives on drama starts asking for restraint, it's usually because they sense something is wrong. At the heart of it all was a fundamental clash of paths. Blueface represented chaos and unpredictability, a figure who seemed comfortable in disorder. NLE Choppa represented transformation, someone actively trying to rewrite his story. When those two energies collide, resolution becomes difficult. Chaos doesn't always recognize growth, and growth doesn't always know how to respond to chaos without compromising itself. This is the stage when many conflicts either dissolve quietly or erupt suddenly. There is very little middle ground. Pride whispers that backing down looks weak. Fear warns that pushing forward could cost everything. And the world watches, waiting to see which voice wins. What made this moment especially fragile was the lack of clear communication. No direct statements, no clarifying words, just noise, interpretation, and speculation. That vacuum allowed the worst assumptions to take root. And once assumptions harden into beliefs, pulling them apart becomes nearly impossible. As days passed with no resolution, the tension became exhausting, not just for the artists, but for everyone watching. The situation felt suspended in mid-air, as if one wrong move could send it crashing down. People who understood hip-hop's history couldn't ignore the warning signs. They had seen too many moments start like this, small, public, dismissible, only to end in tragedy. By now, the question wasn't who was right or wrong. It was whether anyone would step in before momentum took control. Because when a situation reaches this point, it no longer needs intent to become dangerous. All it needs is pressure, pride, and time. And all three were in abundant supply. By the time the tension reached its final stage, the atmosphere surrounding the situation felt heavy and uncertain, like everyone involved could sense that something had to give. What made this moment different from earlier phases wasn't louder words or more dramatic posts. It was the quiet realization that the situation had gone too far to be treated casually. The excitement that once fueled speculation was replaced with concern, and even those who had thrived on the drama began to feel uneasy about where this was heading. Blueface's reputation for unpredictability now worked against him. Even neutral actions were interpreted through a lens of escalation. A simple post sparked debate. A joke felt like a warning. The space for misunderstanding widened. And in that space, fear began to grow. When an artist becomes associated with chaos, intention stops mattering as much as perception. At this point, the narrative was no longer under his full control. It had been absorbed by the public, reshaped, and projected back at him in ways he couldn't fully stay. NLE Choppa, meanwhile, was facing a different kind of pressure. His silence, once seen as strength, now carried weight. Fans wondered how long he could hold his ground without responding. Critics questioned whether restraint was sustainable in an environment that rewards confrontation. But those closest to him understood something crucial. Responding emotionally could undo years of progress. Growth isn't just about changing behavior. It's about resisting old patterns when they are most tempting. What truly shifted the tone was the collective memory of hip-hop's past. Fans, commentators, and even fellow artists began referencing history, not to sensationalize, but to warn. Too many times, situations that started with words ended with irreversible consequences. That shared awareness cast a shadow over everything. It reminded people that behind the headlines and hashtags were real human beings with real lives at stake. Gradually, calls for de-escalation grew louder. Influential voices urged both sides to step back, to protect themselves and their futures. These weren't fans chasing clout. There were people who had seen how fast things can spiral when pride collides with public pressure. The conversation shifted from who will respond next to how does this stop safely. That change in tone marked a turning point. Behind the scenes, it became clear that cooler heads were working to prevent further damage. Whether through private conversations, trusted intermediaries, or simple distance, there was an effort to slow the momentum. Not everything needs a public resolution. Sometimes the most powerful move is choosing not to add fuel to a fire that's already burned too hot. This moment highlighted a deeper issue within modern hip-hop culture, the way conflict is amplified, monetized, and consumed. Social media doesn't just reflect drama, it multiplies it. Algorithms reward outrage. Audiences reward extremes. In that environment, walking away can feel like losing, even when it's the smartest choice. Both artists were navigating not just a personal situation, but an ecosystem designed to push things further than they ever need to go. As the noise slowly began to fade, what remained was a lesson. Not every challenge deserves a response. Not every provocation needs escalation. Strength isn't always loud, and maturity isn't always celebrated in real time. Sometimes it's only recognized after disaster is avoided. For fans, this moment served as a reminder of their own role. Supporting artists doesn't mean pushing them toward conflict. It means valuing their safety, their growth, and their longevity over temporary entertainment. The shift from cheering escalation to encouraging peace showed that awareness is growing, even if slowly. In the end, this wasn't about who won a beef. It was about what was avoided. A situation that felt like it was heading somewhere dark managed to pause before crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. That alone mattered more than any viral moment or trending topic. The story of Blueface and NLE Choppa in this chapter isn't defined by a final diss or dramatic confrontation. It's defined by a crossroads, one where choices mattered more than words. And while the internet will always crave the next explosion, this moment proved that restraint, though quieter, can be far more powerful. If this situation showed us anything, it's how fast online tension can turn into something real, and why awareness matters. Hip-hop has lost too many voices to unnecessary conflict, and moments like this remind us that growth, restraint, and smart choices are just as powerful as any diss or viral headline. If you want real breakdowns that go deeper than the surface drama, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think walking away is the strongest move in today's rap culture, or does silence invite more pressure? Let's talk about it. Share this video with anyone who follows hip-hop closely, and let's keep the conversation focused on music, growth, and protecting lives over clout.